Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Sura Khres from Al Zaytuna Private University. This video is dedicated to my introduction class. Let me wish you all the best first of all. وإن شاء الله تكونوا جميعا أنتم وعائلاتكم بصحة وعافية. Our first story that we're supposed to read and discuss is a story of an hour. However, before we do that, let me give you a quick revision of characterization or types of characters to begin with. Then we'll talk about point of view. And from there, we will start our discussion of a story of an hour. Okay, now, most of you know that characters are of different types. Okay? Okay, different types. Characters are divided into major and minor characters according to the importance of the role played by the character. In other words, if the character plays an important and a major role in the story, then the character is a major character. And usually the major character is the hero or the heroine. Okay? Now, if the character plays a minor role, then he is a marginal. He is or she is what we call a marginal character. شخصية ثانوية. Right? Now, usually, a major character is also a round character, while a minor character is usually flat character. In other words, the hero is a round character because the hero is a major character. And a round character means a deep character. In other words, this character has many traits. Do you know the meaning of traits? Traits meaning features. Because this character is a deep character, he must have many traits. On the other hand, a minor character, الشخصية الثانوية, is a flat character, شخصية سطحية. Flat because he is not a deep character, he is just a flat character, which means he has one or two features or traits. Traits means features, خصائص, right? سمات. Again, a major character is a round character, and he is usually a deep character because he has many traits. And usually the major character is the hero or the heroine. Now, the minor character is a marginal character. He plays an insignificant role or a minor role in the story. That's why a minor character is a flat character and he has or she has only one or two traits or features. Now, the round character is also a dynamic character. A dynamic character is a character who keeps developing or changing. Okay? And this development doesn't have to be to the best, it could be to the worst. The point is that the major character, who is a round character, who is a deep character, is usually a dynamic character. He or she keeps changing, which means he begins as a specific character at the beginning of the work, and he keeps developing into a more developed, a more experienced character at the end of the work. Yeah, in other words, at the beginning of the work, the main character or the major character might be innocent. As he develops throughout the work or as incidents develop, at the end of the work, this major character who started as innocent character is now experienced character. Okay? Now, on the other hand, a minor character who is a flat character is usually static, which is the opposite of dynamic, بمعنى ثابت, while the major character is dynamic. Static means the minor character or the flat character remains the same from the beginning to the end of the work. In other words, if this flat or minor character, okay, if this minor flat character begins as a naive character, naive بمعنى ساذج. If he begins as a naive character here, he remains the same till the end of the work. يعني he begins as a naive character, شخصية ساذجة, and he ends also as a naive character. Okay, this is a general review. Let me put it now in a more systematic way. This might help you. Now, it goes like that. The hero is a main character, which means he is or she is a deep character, which means he is or she is a dynamic character. And this is, the hero is the major character or the main character. Done? Now, on the other hand, a minor character it plays a minor role, دور ثانوي. That's why a minor character is not deep. A minor character is a flat character. That's why he or she is static. Now, our story is a story of An Hour by Kate Chopin, right? We all know that the minor character, if you have read the story, of course, the minor character is Mrs. Mallard. Okay? She plays the main role in the story. Do we have other, often, Mrs. Mallard is the major character, excuse me. She is the heroine of our story. Now, the other minor characters in the story are Mrs. Mallard's sister, the family's friend, and finally, we meet Mr. Mallard for a glimpse. Quickly, he appears in the scene just before Mrs. Mallard's death. So, in A Story of an Hour, we actually have one major character, and that is Mrs. Mallard. We're going to discuss and we're going to study how she plays the major role in the story. Okay? Now, before we do that, however, let me just remind you that the files I have uploaded on your e-learning and on our closed group on Facebook includes this. The same points that we discussed quickly here, you will find in, you will find on the uploaded files on our closed group. You will have a discussion of the characters, which are divided according to the importance of the role as main. They are divided into main or minor characters depending on the importance of the roles they play. أهمية الدور الذي تلعبه الشخصية. They are divided into dynamic and static characters according to the degree of development and degree of change they create in the text. And they are divided as well into round and flat characters according to the number of features that they have or they possess. Okay, guys? Now, before we jump to our discussion of the theme, let me please say something about point of view. What do we mean by point of view? Point of view answers the question or is related to the question, who is the narrator? In other words, point of view, who tells the story? Point of view has to do with who tells the story. In other words, from which angle is the story told. Angle الزاوية من وجهة نظر من the story is told تسرد القصة. Now, when it comes to point of view, basically we have two common points of view. We have what we call first point narrator, okay? And we have omniscient narrator. Now, first point narrator is the narrator who uses first person pronouns ضمير المتكلم I and we. Okay? Again, first point narrator uses I and we pronouns. In other words, first point narrator is one of the characters of the story. إذن هو إحدى الشخصيات في القصة. The first point narrator who uses I and we, who tells us the story from his own point of view, is one of the characters of the story. On the other hand, the omniscient narrator is a third person. The omniscient narrator is a third person narrator. What does that mean? He uses third personal pronouns ضمير الغائب. He uses he, she. He uses he, she, it, etc. Right? Which means the omniscient narrator is not a character in the story. He is created by the author himself, but he's not a character in the story, and he uses third person narrator. Okay, let me say this again one more time. Okay, everybody, one more time. Point of view. What is point of view? Point of view has to do with the narrator. Point of view answers the question, who is the narrator, or who tells the story, or from whose angle the story is told. Who tells us the story? Which point of view we are dealing with here, okay? Now, in literature, the most common 2 points of view are first point narrator. The first point narrator is the narrator who uses I and we pronouns. In other words, he is one of the characters of the story, okay? Now, the omniscient narrator, the second most common type of point of view, is the omniscient narrator. The omniscient narrator is he is not one of the characters of the story. He is a narrator created by the author, and he is outside the story. He is not one of the characters of the story, and he uses third person pronoun. He uses he or she or it. Very well. Now, this omniscient narrator who is not one of the characters of the story is either limited omniscient. He is either limited omniscient narrator, limited omniscient narrator, or he is actually omniscient narrator. What does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? Now, if the omniscient narrator, the omniscient narrator who is not one of the characters of the story is divided into limited omniscient or omniscient narrator. Now, a limited omniscient narrator is a narrator whose knowledge is limited to one of the characters of the story. هلا, let me say something here. Keep it in mind. The omniscient narrator is actually a narrator who knows almost everything. Right? That's why we call him omniscient. لكن he knows almost everything either about one of the characters or he knows everything about all characters. Now here, the omniscient narrator is a narrator who knows everything. Okay, he knows everything about all the characters. Do you get the point? يعني, the point is that the omniscient narrator is either limited omniscient or omniscient. If he is limited omniscient narrator, this means his knowledge is limited to one of the characters. يعني, he knows everything about one of the characters. Okay? Now, but if he is omniscient, generally speaking, then he knows everything. Then he knows everything about all the characters, not about one of the characters. Now, keep this in mind because I'm going to ask you about the story's point of view, and you have to be extremely specific about that. Okay, guys. Now, this section on point of view is already available on the files that I have uploaded for you. Let me have a look at that. I have it here. Let me adjust this camera a little bit. Okay. Notice that point of view is the angle from which a story is told. In other words, who is the narrator? And here I have discussed two major points of view, what we call the first person point of view. And remember, the narrator here uses two pronouns, I and we, because he is what? He is one of the characters of the story. Now, the omniscient point of view is the third person narrator, okay? Who is, remember, he is outside the story, which means he is not one of the characters of the story, and he refers to characters as he, she, or they. Okay? He is omniscient. Why do we call him omniscient? Because he knows everything about all the characters. This is if he is omniscient. But sometimes this narrator is limited omniscient narrator. What does that mean? It means his knowledge is limited to one of the characters. If he is limited omniscient, his knowledge is limited to one of the characters. Very good now. Now, the third point for today has to do with theme. What is theme? الفكرة الرئيسة. Okay? Theme is the main idea that a text, and we mean here a literary text, talks about. Okay? The main idea. Now remember, this main idea is usually stated as a general fact about life. What does that mean? This means when we discuss the theme of a story, we have to use general language or we have to state this theme as a general fact about life, which means we never refer to specific details in the story. We never mention names of the characters, but we have to state our theme generally. يعني, in other words, proverbs, الأمثال, and old sayings, الأقوال الشعبية, proverbs and old sayings are actually the best themes. Okay? Because they are general facts about life. يعني, for instance, when you say, evil is part of human nature. This is a theme. It's a general statement about life. Okay? Or when you say, for instance, not everything that glitters is gold. ليس كل ما يلمع ذهبا. This is also a proverb. This is a general fact about life. It's suitable to be a theme for a story, for instance. Now, again, let me just emphasize the earlier point that theme in stating, يعني, when you state a theme, when you try to tell me what the theme of the story is, you never, remember that, you never mention names of characters. This is one. Okay? You never refer to specific details in the story. Okay? So a theme must be stated in general language. You have to state it as a general idea. Okay? Now, this part on theme is also available on the files I have uploaded for you. Let me check that. For instance, here. Okay. Here it says, theme is the major idea of a story. It is stated as, remember, it's stated as a general fact about life. That's why proverbs and old sayings are the best themes. For example, I have given you a few examples here. Not everything that glitters is gold. In other words, when we state a general theme, we never mention details of the story, such as the names of the characters or specific plot details. We never do that. We have to state our theme in general language. Okay. Now, this concludes our discussion of the last elements of fiction that we could not discuss inside the class. And the video that follows is going to be a discussion of our story, a story of an hour. Thank you all.